Hi again. This is the video lesson for lesson 1.3. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about rates, which is a kind of ratio, and specifically unit rates, which is a kind of rate. So your table of contents is here. You received 2 pink pages in class. Those need to be added to your notebook, and you do need to trim them down just 2 cuts and you'll have that smaller. That's page 24 and 25. The title is Rates and Unit Rates. So go ahead and fill that in and trim down your papers. So first I'd like you to actually open up your blue foldable. We're going to start in that center column talking about rates in general, and then we'll move on to the pink pages. The top box is the definition, so let's fill that in. A rate is a ratio. I want you to realize that off the bat. It is a special kind of ratio where the things that are being compared are 2 numbers with different units or labels. And you want to put both of those words on there. So, for instance, a classic example is miles per hour. There are 2 things being compared, miles and hours, and how fast is that car going. That is what speed is, the amount of miles per hour that a car travels. So a little real world application there. Now, I do want to point out a little blurb that's on the bottom box of what you should know. You should know that you are going to always include words and units when figuring out these problems. I did it a little bit yesterday. From now on, though, you need to start with words first. That's a must and a requirement. So here's our example. This is actually in the center. I know I'm kind of hopping around. Bear with me. The center of your foldable has an example that's talking about a car traveling 100 miles in 2 hours. If we wanted to express this as a rate, remember it's a special kind of ratio, we are going to start with the words, the topics of our rate, our miles and hours. I'm going to be using fractions a lot from this point on as well, but remember ratios and rates can be expressed 3 different ways. The reason why I'm going to be using a fraction is that it's a lot easier to manipulate, and you'll see why as we move forward. So I'm going to show words first. Miles, I'm literally going to be writing it in the numerator, and then the hours, I'm going to be writing it in the denominator. Then I'm going to fill in the rate that I'm given, 100 miles in 2 hours. So 100 is going to be in the numerator, and 2 is going to be in the denominator. Why? Because those are specific to the units that I just wrote. 100 miles, 2 hours. The denominator deals all with hours. The numerator deals all with miles. That's important to keep consistent. Numerator should match number and label. Now I have to ask the question, can I simplify this? I can. I'm going to be dividing each side by 2. Oftentimes we want to write things in simplest form. In your previous years, you probably did the arrow thing. I think I did that in the previous video. You are wanting to divide both the numerator and denominator by the same number. So in order to get this to be simpler, I'm going to divide both the top and bottom by 2. So that will make it 50 miles for every 1 hour that the person drives in the car. So a way to summarize that is that we're going to have 50 and we're going to add back in the words, 50 miles every hour. So that was an example of simplifying a rate and practicing using words first. Now I'm going back down to the bottom, very bottom, where it talks about unit rate. Unit rates are a special kind of rate where the denominator is 1. our example in the middle is actually a unit rate when we simplified it. The key words that you're going to want to pay attention to that lets you know, hey, we're going to be doing a unit rate is the word per. Also, add this one in, the word every. Every hour, every mile, that kind of thing. So just a little tip on your main blue foldable. Now we're going to dive deeper with our pink sheets. So get the first one that has the square where there's a bunch of examples. That's the one we're going to start with first. So here are a lot of examples of different kinds of rates. We're going to deal with some of them below. I've broken this up just so that you can see it better, but all we're going to do is follow the note sheet down. So a unit rate, again, finds the rate for something compared to one unit. So a unit, think of it as one thing. That'll help you remember what we want to get our rates to look like. Something compared to one. So here's one of the examples from that box. 70 pages that were printed from a copier, say, every 2 minutes. So, just like our example in our blue foldable, we're going to start with words first. What are our topics? What are we comparing? Comparing pages to minutes. So I'm going to start writing pages in the numerator and minutes in the denominator. Then I'm going to plug in my numbers associated with those units. And now I'm going to simplify. But this time I'm going to do it a little bit more sophisticatedly. We're in 6th grade right now, and really when we draw those arrows, I know what you're doing. It's perfectly okay. This is a different, mathematically more precise way to show simplifying fractions. What you want to do is divide by 1. But we're in fraction land. This is all fractions that we're dealing with here. So we want to divide by a form of 1 that is a fraction. So let's just say 2 over 2, or 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 over 4 is 1. 10 over 10 is 1. So when you're doing those arrows to divide, you're dividing by a form of 1. So I'm going to show that more precisely here. So I'm going to be dividing by a form of 1. Anything divided by 1 is a self. That's why it actually works. These are equivalent fractions because we're dividing by a form of 1. Our form of 1 is 2 over 2. 2 divided by 2, 1. Now we can do, and this is what you're doing when you're drawing those arrows, 2 divided by 2, 1. 70 divided by 2, 35. So we've just found a unit rate. 35 pages are printed every minute. So notice the word every. We also could write this 35 pages per minute. We can use those two words interchangeably. So I want you to pick one of the other ones in that box that's at the top, and I want you to do the same thing. I'm going to come back and show you which one I picked. Go ahead and try it. And what I'm going to be picking is the songs per minute. And I just want you to look at this one because you may not have picked this one and you might see this later on. The songs, according to the example, were 5 songs, say, are being downloaded in 10 minutes. Now I want to get this into a unit rate that's simpler. And so I'm going to want to divide so that I want to know how many songs are being downloaded every minute. So notice I've set up my division over here and that I want it to be equal to 1. So 10 divided by 10 is 1. What I do to the bottom, I have to do the top. But now I have 5 being divided by 10. Smaller number first, then that 10. That actually will be a decimal. If I divide 5 by 10, I will get 1/2, or 0.5. It is okay to have a number less than 1 in the numerator. Remember, these are ratios. They're rates, and they're just two things being compared. You know, it's weird to think of a fraction in the numerator of a fraction. So now back to my rate. Now I can say that there is a half of a song being downloaded every minute. So half of a song per minute is what I've simplified this rate to. Let me turn back on my projector and move on. So what we've been noticing as we are trying these rate problems is that when we simplify them, there's a recurring thing happening in the denominator. Look back and see if you can't notice it. All of the denominators are ending up being a 1. So we're going to actually write that. What's the same about all unit rates? The rate is simplified so the denominator is 1. And that is the clue of, okay, yes, we have a unit rate. A little bit of additional information. A special kind of unit rate is a unit price. The unit price is just the cost of something per unit. So the label or the unit that you're using is money, and then a unit of weight, like ounces or pounds, say you're buying bananas, that kind of thing. So now the second page that's pink deals strictly with unit price, same thing as unit rate, except for money's involved. So this is a real world application all over the place. So when you're looking at unit price, it's very important when you're shopping to determine what the better buy is. And it helps you compare products when you're at the store. So here's a little map so that you can understand what you're looking at when you're in the store. The unit price is usually over on the left, top left. There's the barcode and the name of the item, and then it has the total price here. Often it will give you the size. That's important to take into consideration as well when you're comparing products. The size, the unit price, and how much it will cost you. Here's another example where you're seeing two different kinds of canned pears. Yay. One is for a 16-ounce can that costs $1, and the other is a 28-ounce can that will cost a little bit more. But you can notice if you're comparing these per ounce, if you have the cans broken up according to 1 ounce each, how much would that cost per ounce? You can see that it's 2 cents cheaper to buy the bigger can of pears. Here's a real world application for myself. Wearing hearing aids, I often will look at all of the options and different size packages and make my decision based on the lower unit price. Here, if I were comparing these two, I might be willing to spend a little bit more because the unit price per 100, now I'm not going to buy 100, but if I were to, I'd be spending $62 instead of $68. It's saving me money to buy the $14.97 one. Here's another picture that I took, 2 different brands. So you might want to be shopping for brands, different brands that you might want. Here is a marketable difference, 58 versus 68. That's $10 different just to buy a different brand. So now we are on the pink paper right underneath that picture that was describing how to read a label in the supermarket or store. This is how to find a unit price. So a 10-ounce jar of tomatoes is on sale for $1.99. What's the unit price? We're going to do it the same way as a regular unit rate. We're going to start with the topics. So we have ounces and dollars. For unit price, the money, is always going to be in the numerator. So I'm going to do the $, and then I'm going to put my ounces because I want to know the cost per ounce. That will be my unit price. Now I'm going to fill in my numbers, 199 and 10. And now I need that denominator to not be a 10. I need it to be a 1. So this is why I set up my division so that I can fill in this 1 and I can know that 10 divided by 10 is going to be that 1. What I do to the bottom, I do to the top. Now 199 divided by 10 is that decimal trick, powers of 10. When we're dividing by 10, we're dividing is the same as multiplying by a 10. So the decimal point's just going to move one place to the left. If you really want to scratch it out on paper, you can, but use your shortcuts. This is just 199 thousandths. Now we're dealing with money. So I'm going to say that this is 20 cents per ounce as my unit price. So we're nearing the end here. The trick for unit price is to take the cost and divide it by the weight. The price, like I said before, I want you to write this down, is always the numerator when you set it up. So that the denominator is the other unit, either ounces or pounds or kilograms or tickets or whatever the topic should be. And that, your goal is to get that denominator to be a 1 for unit rate and unit price. See you tomorrow and we'll practice more.